All right, back in the network this time with Mimi Hayes. Mimi, you're on. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well this morning. I am. Yeah, how about you?
I'm good. It's a nice day. It's Friday. Very nice day for me.
It is Friday. I totally forgot about that.
Definitely, Mimi, it's definitely Friday. Okay. Let's get it together. This is not a great song. I'm just
How
joking.
could you forget?
How could you forget? Yeah, right. Well, obviously, I think the audience is going to really enjoy this. You have a very interesting story, but I watched some of your comedy clips, your stand-up comedy.
Thank
Really like
you.
it. But you have this very deep story that encompasses more than comedy. So let's hit the backwards machine, and
Ooh.
we're gonna go back to a faraway time. What's the beginning of Mimi Hayes look like?
Oh, wow. That is such a fun question. The beginning of Mimi Hayes, she actually was not a comedian. She was a high school teacher.
Whoa,
Yeah, yeah,
really?
crazy. Um, I keep wanting to talk in third person, but I'm just gonna switch over to first
Can
person
we
now.
switch back? Yeah.
I was a high school teacher in Colorado, and the year was 2014. I had just gotten out of college. I was all about being a teacher. None of that came. I mean, I did comedy in college. I did like improv, right? But I was a teacher. Like that was my identity. I was a teacher. So I went to go do that, and I got 5 days into it, literally 5 days in, first week of school, and I had a brain hemorrhage.
Hmm.
Yeah, so
Man,
not the start I was expecting.
not ideal. No,
Not ideal.
no.
I was also on a blind date when I had this migraine that I didn't know was a brain hemorrhage. My date certainly didn't know. I was just like, this is not, there's not going to be a second date. I'm sorry.
No, no
I
way.
don't feel well.
You X that out quickly.
But I was in this like super chaotic time of my life where I was like, I'm gonna be a teacher, and also I'm gonna just like schedule all these dates because I'm lonely because I had just gotten out of a big breakup a few months prior. So I really didn't know who I was, but what I wanted to be was a teacher. That's what I knew I wanted to be. And then I had this crazy couple of weeks of they didn't know what was wrong with me. They didn't know why I was dizzy and why my vision was getting blurry and why I couldn't, walk. And finally, my mom essentially just said, "We're going to go to the ER and we're not going to leave until someone gives us what we want." So big, big move for the mama bear, big win.
Big win.
Uh, and we sat there and she's like, "We're not leaving." And we did get an MRI eventually. And that MRI did show us that I had had a brain hemorrhage. So, I'd had a stroke, and that migraine was actually, a tiny little clump of cells in my head
Yeah.
um, rupturing, I think due to stress, due
Yeah.
to, probably sustaining a very high blood pressure for a very long time, just not about it. Um, so once we had that diagnosis, it was like, oh, okay.
Right.
Crazy. Your life is going to be different now. And so we didn't go straight to a brain surgery because they said, we're not sure if that's something that we should do. You know, Sometimes these things go away. Isn't that nice? Sometimes these things
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
go away.
Yeah. And they ruled out the date. The date was not the issue. They ruled that out.
Yes, yes. So they said, yeah, just go home, like take it easy, like go on bed rest for like, you know, um, 6 weeks, see if it goes away. I'm like, okay, great. So I go back to my parents' place where I was living and have to tell the kids, teacher has had a bit of a whoopsie doodle. She cannot
Whoopsie
teach
doodle.
you. She cannot teach you right now. They were high schoolers, by the way. There's no
Oh
reason why
yeah.
I should have been saying whoopsie doodle,
I
but this
know,
is my
right?
personality.
Okay.
So, So I'm off of teaching. I'm on the couch, ready to heal my brain, like taking walks around the block. It's getting much worse, not better. So it's affecting my ability to walk. It's cutting off the communication to the left side of my body. So now I like can't really use my left hand. Walking is hard to do. My vision was double. So it was not getting better. It was not
Yeah.
getting better.
No.
That much is clear. And then when I couldn't taste anymore. Um, I thought, oh well, that's totally that's normal, like that's fine. Said that out loud, and my sister's like, no, we're calling the people, like
Yeah.
call in the cavalry. This is not right, I'm not coping. I'm just like making jokes, and I'm like, I can't taste. It's fine. Feed me all the gross things,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I was refusing to really understand any of those symptoms that were coming at me. And so went back and they said, oh, yep, it got bigger. We're going to go take it out this week. So just pencil that in, just quick little brain surgery this
Mhm.
week. So I did that, did a brain surgery. And then there was a whole lot of recovery after, and a whole lot of story after too. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure what were we talking about? The beginning of Mimi Hayes? Yes, Mimi Hayes is forming. As her brain is exploding, she is forming.
Yeah.
Um, I was kind of losing sight of that like teacher self.
I
And
see.
really where I think like Mimi Hayes as an entity came was after the brain injury. And I had healed and I was back to teaching. Oddly enough, I went back to that for a couple years. But I started doing stand up and I started doing comedy. And I was writing this book about all this crazy situation about my brain and trying to understand it. And where we really arrive is like, I couldn't navigate teaching and comedy and writing, all in the same body. Like, I couldn't do all that. I felt
Yeah.
this great pull to really be myself and to really get on stage and talk about like these crazy things that really nobody was laughing at first,
Yeah.
except for me. But I got better at it. I got better at
Yeah.
like raising the stakes, checking in on the audience. Are you guys okay? I hope you guys are like, okay, is this something I said? Like trying to check in with them because it's serious stuff. It's not like I'm just up there, you know, talking about airplane food.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's harder stuff to talk about. So as I got more serious about the book and comedy, I moved to New York City and took it a lot more seriously. Got the book published, was doing clubs, um, did a one-woman show, toured all over the business, did a lot. So that I feel like that's Mimi Hayes in her prime,
Yes. Yes.
uh, pre-pandemic. But I think it was all a process of like me learning how to find the humor in what is absolutely not funny, but I
Yeah.
needed to find funny so that I could survive.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to keep going backwards a little bit here. So,
Yes, I'm sure you have many questions.
oh, there's the funny thing is I have no clue what I'm going to ask until the person starts talking. And then I'm like, all right, there's some points here we have to clarify for this.
Please do.
I think one of those, I love comedy. I love watching comedy, talking. I've had several comedians on. I just think it's an interesting art form, a very vulnerable art form, I think, in many ways. But did you consider yourself funny growing up? And how did other
Hmm.
people think? Did other people think you were funny? Like,
Hmm. That's a really good question. I always thought I was like a theater kid. Like
okay,
I someone told me this the other day and I was like, that's it. I give off heavy middle child energy.
okay, okay.
So I'm like, attention, yes, love
Love
it,
it. Yes.
need it, thrive, just that's all me. But I knew I was like kind of goofy. I knew I was a little, sorry, this is like my throat.
Oh, no worries. It's all good.
Um, I knew I was kind of goofy as a kid. But I always thought I was like, you know, going to be this like actor or like this, performer person.
Yeah.
Um, and then when it came to the comedy, I thought what I was saying was funny because it was about me, right? And I'm like, I think it's hilarious that I like had never seen a catheter before, and then I
Hmm.
wake up from brain surgery and I'm like, where's this tube go? Like
Yeah.
what the hell is this?
Right.
I thought that was hilarious. They're like, she's coping. It's fine. Like she's coping. It's
Like, come
whatever.
on.
Yeah, and I'm like, watch out for that bucket. Like I'm peeing in it. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
I was just having a ball. I thought I was having just a party. Like the whole time I was sick, I was just like, I'm gonna have a party with this. Um, so because of that, a lot of my friends didn't know I was sick, because I was
Yeah.
like, and the Academy Award goes to,
Yes.
because I was so good at lying to them.
Yeah.
I think as I started doing comedy, I got really scared of this content and how heavy it was. And so I stopped doing my brain bits. I stopped talking about my brain injury. I became more, I was doing teacher jokes and I'm a white lady jokes and, just things around me that were a little easier for other people to swallow. And then I was in New York and I was teaching a comedy writing class, and it was like the level 2 of this class, and I was working with these two guys, and I was like, yeah, you just got to find like what's unique about you and what's special about you that only you can say. And they're like, hey Mimi, when's the last time you told a joke about your brain on stage? And I'm like, oh, touche.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's true, I was afraid. I was afraid that it wasn't funny. I was afraid that maybe I wasn't, and the story wasn't itself. It was too hard for people. It was too shocking, too whatever. But then I thought, no, let's just double down, like I'll find a way to make it funny. And, you know, honestly, the people that think it's the most funny that I was shocked at is other brain injury survivors.
Mm.
They're like, get her on Conan, get her on all these. They're like, she's the comedian of the
Isn't that
year,
funny?
like they love my jokes because they relate to them, obviously. I don't expect, I hope there's not a brain injured person in the crowd every night, but like there could be. That's the chances are there might be. So whether or not they're there, though, I want to tell a story that is different and maybe makes you think a bit more. Maybe it's not full of laughter, haha, but maybe there's a bit that kind of makes you think and question,
Mm.
which I think is like, that's the art form. I don't need to make you laugh the entire time. I am not a monkey. Don't make me dance. Like
Right. Yeah. Come on, clown. Let's like,
yeah, exactly.
makes me think, well, man, I have a lot of things. Let's see. So the first thing I was thinking was, what separates like greatness in comedy from just like kind of good
Mm.
comedians? And is that observable pretty quickly with someone?
I think it's just a timing thing. I think that like everybody starts out around the same territory, right? And you actually do see a lot of comedians when they first start emulating other comedians
Yeah. Yeah.
and doing these things that they see because they think that's what I'm supposed to do. And I did that too. Like even my dad is like, you're so funny in person, but when you get on stage, it's just like a little different, and I'm
Huh.
like, that's
Huh.
probably me like taking on a persona or not being fully myself, which I've been working to like, you know, peel that apart and to be
Yeah.
the most authentic version of myself on stage. So I think we all kind of start in the same place. I think some people are better writers, which I think is going to get you a lot farther than if you're just like, I just tell funny jokes in the living room sometimes and I'm going to try
Yeah.
it. Like that's
Yeah.
fine. Like go
Yeah.
ahead and do it. Like try it. I'm not discouraging people from doing comedy. But it is a long slog. I've been doing this since 2015 and I'm still like, I have so much to learn. I have so many things I need to try and I need to like take these risks. And, you know, I've been at it for a while. So I think it's just about time and how much time you're willing to put into it
Yeah.
and how you're willing to grow and adapt for yourself. Like I started in Denver, so when I go back to Denver sometimes, I still see some of the same comedians I would see. They're still hustling, but they're still telling the same jokes that they did in 2015. And I'm like, all right, like me, I take issue with that because I think you should always be trying to tell new jokes and trying to explore. And, you know, if you are telling that joke, I want it to be told in a totally different way than I heard it last time. But sometimes it's not. So it's like, I think it's just how much time you're willing to put into it. If you really want to do it, if you can find other jobs that afford you to
Yeah.
keep pursuing it. I mean, I'm not someone who like needs to get on stage every night. Like, I'll tell you that. Like that, I don't think that makes you a good comedian. I mean, I
Mm.
think it helps. I think like, yes, that there is certainly the hustle and the grind, and you got to get on stage. Like, you have to get on stage, but also like I take time to reflect and to write and to watch my sets again and think about how they could be done better and talk to people about the set. And there's a lot of stuff that happens off stage that I don't think we talk about enough that I would like to see other comedians doing, and I think they are doing. So yeah.
It makes me also think about how the current state of comedy and I'll say kind of culture and how people in some ways feel like some things may be more offensive in their mind.
Hmm.
How has that changed comedy in your mindset? Like, do you feel like you have to be a little more censored with it? Or because I've seen like documentaries about comedians and stuff, I'm just like, it's hard sometimes now because everybody's always offended about everything you say. What are your thoughts about that?
Right. I think that's never going to change. I think now it's pretty heightened, but for me, I try to pay attention to the climate. So my very last like New York club show was the week of the pandemic shutdown.
Hmm.
It was a few days before everything went lights off. And I've been doing shows and stuff, and I'd heard people talking about COVID, and like I was gonna do my like brain injury set. I was gonna do like, yeah, I had this big brain bleed, and like, yeah, like an iteration of what you've seen online. I was gonna
Hmm.
do something like that. And I was like, the vibes are off. Like, I don't think I want to tell this story tonight because it's pretty intense right now. And I don't think anyone wants to hear someone talk about how they almost died.
Yeah.
Mm, you know, so I switched it up that night and I talked about auditioning for The Bachelor. Just super light, just
Yeah.
lovely, just
Yeah.
ridiculous. And just there's no reason. Everything's fine. So I decided to make that choice because I thought it was too much. Um, that being said, I think our job as comedians is to push the cultural conversation forward. So that's why you are seeing so many conversations coming out of, Dave Chappelle and,
Hmm.
all these things, because we are the ones bringing those things up. Um, and how we're talking about them can be stark, it can be shocking, it can be offensive, it can feel wrong. Um, I don't think you should be mean on stage.
Yeah.
That's just my thing. I don't like to be mean. Um, but even I do some risky stuff every once in a while just to see, oh, could I get away with that? It didn't feel right to me. I'm not going to do it. Something I don't do jokes about Alzheimer's, okay?
Yeah.
Because even though I'm someone who I really feel like I'm going to get it, like with
Oh
my
no.
brain, I feel like I'm already like halfway there. But I know how serious it is, and I know how people like really feel for those people in their lives that have that disease,
Yeah.
and I don't have it, so I can't really, you know. Um, so I'll make all the jokes I want about stroke, but I won't touch that one.
Right.
I don't like to touch things I don't know about. That's my thing. But if, I don't know, I think it's just part of like the culture is shifting, and the people with the microphones, they're gonna start saying some crazy stuff, and we might like it, we might not like it. I think that's on us to like have those conversations, you know. Canceling, I don't really know about that. Like, I think there are some awful people that I hope never get on stages again. Like,
Yeah.
I'll say that, but like they're going to, like, that's just the
Yeah.
reality, is like they're going to, and they're going to push past that. And um so I'm really interested in the comedians who are like doing out of the box things. And
Yeah.
maybe it does feel uncomfortable. Maybe it's a conversation that we've never had on stage before. We've never talked about XYZ. I'm really interested in what they're doing. Um, so hopefully nobody like cancels us all and shuts the mic off.
No way, man. I tell you, a comedian I really love right now is Ronnie Chang. I love Ronnie
Oh, I
Chang's
saw
sketch,
him
man.
live. He was so good.
He's so funny, and he talks so much about Asian culture and his interpretation of different voices of different, like, Japanese versus Chinese, Korean. I mean, I was crying. I was laughing so hard. But it makes me think also, like you were saying, like the people like who have had brain injuries, they think it's funny. I wonder what you think when somebody, there's often people who have never had any of this in their life, but they're offended by it. But the people who have experienced it, like you, are not offended by it. What's that disconnect there?
That is super interesting. You're right. And I think someone's always going to be offended at anything you say.
Yes.
I mean, it's always going to happen. The amount of negative comments on my TED Talk right now, I could write a whole book with all these
Wow.
negative comments. Um, and it's just, they're trolls. They're trolls.
They're just trolls. Yeah, of
They're
course.
just
Of
trolls.
course.
But maybe the chances are too that I said something that hit them in a place that they're not ready to have that conversation.
Hmm.
And so me bringing it up and saying, "Hey, it's fine to laugh at stuff, but you need to go to therapy." And them being
Yeah.
like, I'm so offended because I personally," and it's like, "Okay, fine." Like, okay, I really think that there's always going to be someone, because we all see the world in such different ways.
Yeah.
And there's no possible way you could tell a joke or say a thing that every single kind of person is going to be like, "Yep, that's it." Like, because we're
Yeah.
all so different.
That's right.
And even I felt like I was being kind of risque, even starting to tell some brain injury jokes, because you look at me, you don't know, you can't tell. But
Yeah.
other people, you can tell.
That's
They're in
true.
wheelchairs, they can't move half their body. Like they have a caregiver 24/7. I don't have that. So I even felt a little like, am I allowed to say these things if I am so, quote unquote, normal looking?
Hmm.
Right. So I had my own complex about that. But then when I tried it out, I started doing it. I was like, no, they love me. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like
They
they're
love me.
happy. They're happy for me. Yeah, they love me. They
They
really love me.
love me.
They were happy that I was saying it because nobody else was. And so, is there a chance that, yeah, someone could come for me and be like, I don't like your joke about using a handicap parking spot because you don't actually need one. Yeah, sure. Like, go, all right, we can have that conversation. Like, I'm happy to have that conversation. Actually, like me as a person, I am. Now,
Yeah.
are other people? I don't know. Like, that's the thing, is I think when you start saying things that other people will hear, you run the risk of someone being offended, or, you know, yeah, having their own thoughts and feelings about it, which they're going
Yeah.
to. You can't, that's not my responsibility. I can't control that. All I can do is control me. And then if they want to have a conversation with me, I'm happy to do that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's like you can't shelter people from everything. I mean, it's things happen.
Right.
If you control your behavior around it and how you, I mean, you don't have to go to it. I mean, you don't have to watch it also. You could, I forget people like forget stuff like that. Like I'm 43 and I grew up in a time like without the internet and all this stuff. And it's like, if you didn't like something, you're like, oh, just turn it off. Just, watch something else. And I feel like we forget that that's an option, like for things. It's like, it's just strange. Like,
Well, I think people like that because you can say anything all the
yeah.
time, right? Like, I can watch something and be like, I didn't like that and I need to voice that because that's
Yeah.
my right. Like,
I
okay. In the
like how you
YouTube
said that.
comments, really,
Yeah.
you troll? Okay.
Yeah. I didn't like that. Yeah.
I didn't like that. This is not a comedy set. This is a TED Talk and I hate it. And I'm like, okay.
One thing about that is like, I don't know, this is maybe my own bias about it, but like, I've never like been so compelled to like write in the comments of something, like be really like negative. Like, I don't
Right.
know. Like, I'm always wondering, like, who are these people that are always like so into that? I'm like,
Mm. Yeah, that's a really good. I don't really feel that desire either. I feel actually I feel the opposite. I want to say something that's helpful,
yeah,
or if it's like a comedian who's like on a thread on Facebook and they're like struggling with something, I'm going to be like, "Hey, I know it's really hard. Like feel free to hit me up
yeah,
or try this or like I feel the opposite, desire is to say something helpful.
yeah.
So I don't really know about those people. I hope they're going to therapy. I hope they're
I hope
okay.
so. I don't know. Like, nothing compels me to like want to be like, yeah, I'm upset. Like, like I need to write this out on this thing. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Just move on to another thing. I don't know. But I wanted to ask you, who's the funniest person you've ever met, comedian or non-comedian?
Mm, that's so hard because I've worked with so many funny people. Like people that I look at them and I laugh. Like not because they're like that sounds really messed up, but they're just always
Uh,
silly. There's
yeah.
just like silliest people. Um so lots of people in the improv community I just like love. They make me laugh so hard.
Yeah.
Um I really have always enjoyed Jim Gaffigan.
Love Jim Gaffigan.
And I did get to be on a show with him in New York.
Yeah.
He like was the surprise headliner and I was like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna die." Like, and he was really nice. He was so kind. And get this too. So he fell on stage that night. Like he ate shit.
Really?
He just 2 steps, boom, hit the floor. And of course we were all like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And he recovered. Like I've never seen any comedian recover this way. Like he just did a full hour and he was just like, "I'm going to lean into it." And that guy's a professional. He had a whole set prepared,
Yeah.
but he's like, "No, I'm going to talk about that."
It's so great.
It was
You take
so
away the
good.
power of trolls when you do that. You're like, I'm gonna talk about it.
Right. I'm going to get there first. And I mean, if anyone ever was like, it's so messed up the Jim like fell on stage. Who hurt you?
Yeah,
Like
who hurt
he's
you?
the nicest
So
man.
nice.
So he's just amazing. And also I connect to him on another level because his wife had brain cancer.
Hmm.
And so he like just stopped touring, stopped doing everything to take care of her, be her caregiver. And you know, just the amount of love and care that I saw him giving towards her, I
Yeah.
was like, I'm gonna bring my book and I'm gonna sign one for him and I'm gonna see if he'll take it. Um, because I felt like it was a really nice connection. I said, "This is for you and your wife," and she had started writing a book, but she hadn't published it yet about her experience.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Hey Jim," I just kind of like we all kind of like rushed off the stage when he got off, and I was just like, "Hey Jim, like just really want to give you my book. I know you're a great caregiver." I was like speaking a mile a minute, just like this,
Yeah.
like, "Whoa." And he just looks at the cover and he's like, "Huh," and it's I'll be okay. It's just a hole in my head.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Do you have a hole in your head?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "That's funny." And then he took it, he said thank you, and then he walked away into the streets of New York. And I was like,
Yes.
"Oh, he's amazing."
He really is amazing. He
He
has one of the,
really is.
he's so funny, like just how he makes fun of himself and his weight and all this stuff. And like, I think one of his funniest jokes ever, I've watched every stand-up he's ever done, was when he's like, he has 5 kids. He's like, having 5 kids is like, imagine you're drowning and someone hands you a baby. He's like,
Yeah,
that's what it's
yeah,
like.
yeah.
He's just so hilarious. I often wonder like what other comedians think is funny to them and who they think is funny.
I think that's a good question. I think we all like have our own like people that we aspire to be,
Yeah.
which I think can be just as dangerous if you're like, I love like the amount of, I'm sorry, like male comedians I've seen trying to emulate Mitch Hedberg.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. That's right.
stop. Like You're not him. But it's
Yeah.
it's like I'm gonna do all the pauses and the pauses
Yeah.
and the jokes that don't relate to each. Only one person did that. He did
That's
that
right.
already. Like find your own thing, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think everyone's got their own like comedians that they love and aspire. And in terms of like what's funny, it's actually I don't laugh a lot.
Mm.
Like if I really think something is funny, I'll actually hiss. I'll be
Oh,
like, it's very creepy.
what is
Like,
that?
I don't
Yeah.
know. Just like it's very strange. I'll like if someone's hissing in the audience, it's good. Like that's me hissing at the
Yeah.
joke.
Yeah. Wow, that's different.
So I don't like laugh a ton. And maybe it's just because I'm around it so much and I'm thinking about a lot and I'm processing a lot. But um, yeah. But also as a person, when I'm not doing, I'm laughing all the time. I'm a
Yeah.
giggly
Right.
personality. So why don't I laugh in the audience? I don't know. I
There's some
can't I can't
reflection
explain to
happening here.
yeah.
Yeah. There's some deep
I'm an
reflection, Mimi.
artist. I'm an
I'm an
artist
artist here. Okay. I can't explain my art to you.
to
Like,
you, peasant. No.
I mean, I have met some incredibly funny people in my life who are not comedians. Like, and they just oozed funniness. Like, I remember when I was in high school, my brother had a friend who I just thought was the funniest person on the planet. And he was not trying. He just was
Hmm.
like, he would tell jokes. You ever met somebody who told jokes, but they weren't trying to tell jokes? It was just commentary on other
Hmm.
people. And
Hmm.
it was like, it's just funny. Like, that I always find really funny when someone's not trying to tell jokes, but just how they explain situations are hilarious for it.
Yeah, I think that's also been how I've grown as a comedian. It's like trying not as hard,
Yeah.
because when you get out there, you want to try really hard. You want to be really funny. You want to hit the punchlines.
Isn't that the job to be funny?
That's the job. Well, yeah, it's the
On some
job,
level,
but
I mean,
yeah. But I think the less hard I try on stage now, the funnier I am, which is nice because I had a big hang up over like if I was gonna forget I used to be really scripted, like really,
yeah,
really like I memorized every single line on my little notebook page to the point where like a blind comedian in Denver was like, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but are you reading your like lines off the script? That's how it sounds.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, you're right. That's bad. Like that makes I'm too like polished.
yeah,
So then as I started doing more of like the brain stuff, I would let myself be brain injured on stage,
yeah,
which is great. Like I would forget a word and I'd be like, I don't know what that word is, you guys. I
yeah,
was gonna say it, don't know it, like,
yeah,
and people actually liked that more of that honesty of just being myself and being, or like anytime, oh my God, anytime I have a problem with the microphone, or if I'm like stumbling, I look drunk, I'm like, don't worry, I'm just impaired, like it's
yeah.
fine.
I'm not drunk.
um I'm not drunk. um so I think that like freeing myself up to just like, yeah, just being myself and being the goofy self that I always have been has made me a better comedian than when I'm like,
Yeah.
I gotta be a comedian. I gotta try really
I'm a
hard.
comedian. Oh my goodness. See, I just forgot what I was going to say. See, and I didn't have a brain
Fantastic.
injury. At least I don't
Fantastic.
think I have. But
You never know.
you never know here. See, I'm trying to sound like a copper from like
Haha, gumshoe.
gumshoe here. Um, do you ever talk about, you mentioned earlier about dating. Do you ever bring dating into your comedy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Dating's weird.
Oh,
Like,
dating's the worst. It is the worst.
there's a song that
Um,
came. Now I'm not into dating. I've been married like almost 18 years, which is
oh,
great. But
hey, good for
I
you.
I have a lot of friends who are single, and I've had a lot of dating app developers on here, and I just
Oh,
find the whole world to be very crazy. The dating scene.
it is insanity. It is.
Yes.
And that is its own source of content for me. And at some point I'm just like, can my life stop being content? Can it stop? Like, it
Can it
needs to
stop being
stop being
content?
content. Well, that's good content. Maybe you should like write that down. That's really funny. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
how about I just not be alone? Like, how about like someone like love me? Like, we could do that instead.
I don't want to be alone.
No, it's really relatable. It's really terrible. Most of my friends are married with kids, and so it's something that, yeah, I think is still a very fun thing for me to talk about, um, in like the with the lens of my brain injury too.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that is a fun, unique like take on it. And for me, I'm like, when do I tell the guy that I'm dating like that my head exploded? Do I say date one? Do I wait? Like, do I like sprinkle it in a little mystery? Obviously, they
Yeah.
could Google me, so it's maybe not that hard to find out this
That's
information.
true.
But like that's a conversation I have with myself: is when do I have this vulnerable conversation with a guy that means a lot to me, that is also part of my work, that needs to happen, but it's like, when is that gonna? Are you ready for that? Are you ready
Right.
for that conversation?
All right, we got to know. I have to know. What's the worst date you've been on?
Ah, God, there's so many.
Really?
Oh, there's so
Are there
many.
that
And
many?
actually, yes. And the worst was not the one where my head exploded. Actually, that was pretty lukewarm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, what happened after, obviously crazy, but um, does it have to be like a singular date, or can it be
No,
like an
no.
experience?
Let's just say experience. Yeah.
Okay, fine. I'm gonna air this out. Oh, it's gonna
Just
feel
do
great.
it. Come
Yeah.
on.
Okay, so very recently, not very recently. Okay, August, I was performing in Portland, and I had a couple gigs lined up. One of those was a comedy show. I found a bunch of other like local comedians, and then I headlined it. And in the audience, I had I won't call him a heckler, but he did start talking. I said something about, it was after I'd given the whole bit about like I have some PTSD, some post Todd stress disorder because of the brain situation. Um, you know, and I said, I'm expecting a proposal any day now, which is just a joke because I'm not, because that's crazy. And then he was like, "Oh," and then I was like, "Oh," and then I kind of like went to the crowd and I was like, "Are you trying to propose to me right now, sir?"
Yeah.
And then we kind of had a back and forth on stage, and then I was like, "Oh, clocked that. He's kind of cute. Okay, moving on."
Yeah.
And then I went back to the back of the area to go sell my books. And he showed up and he was like, "Hello, you are very funny." And I was like, say more. Continue.
Yes, please.
And he bought my book. And I like flirted with him in the inscription, which he didn't even read until the next day, which is just whatever. But hung out with him that night at the bar. I was like, he's really cute. He had a friend hanging around, so I was like, man, I wish his friend would go take a hike.
Yeah.
I really want to just bundle him up and take him back to my hotel
That's
room.
right.
That did not happen. But we exchanged numbers and we were talking, and I finished out the weekend with some other gigs, and we're talking long distance now. He lived in Washington, and it was random that he was even at my comedy show. I was like, "How did you hear about this? Why are you here?
Yeah.
This doesn't make any sense." So we are talking turns into, phone calls and video, and like he's like all about it. He's like, "I'm all about this." And he's like reading my book and he's like highlighting it. And he's like, "This woman is amazing." And he's like saying all the right things. Because when
Yes.
you talk about like, when you talk to me on that level, I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh my God, like that's
Yes.
crazy,"
Yeah.
So all this is happening. He's kind of like courting me, I guess, long distance. And it's happening like through the book and all this stuff and phone calls, and it's very intimate. And he's like, "I have to come see you. I have to come see you. When can I come see you in Colorado?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. Kind of busy. I got like a TED talk coming up. I'm gonna be in Iceland for a month performing. I'm gonna be off Broadway. Like, I don't really know. There's a lot going on this fall. And he's like, great, I'll come in 2 weeks. I'll come like for Labor Day weekend.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit, this guy's serious.
Yeah.
This guy is that was his idea.
Yeah. You wanted some Mimi time.
He wanted some me time. Yeah. So I'm like, well, fine, like, all right. And so I helped him like pick out an Airbnb. And I told my parents, I was like, this guy is like, because I was living with my parents,
Yeah.
right, during the pandemic. And I was like, this guy is very serious. He's coming to Colorado. And I was borrowing my mom's Tahoe. It's like this super like mom car.
Right.
Like it's like the biggest, most ridiculous, ugly car. She's like, okay, just borrow the Tahoe. That's fine. She was like, I don't want to see you all weekend. If I see you, it means something has gone wrong.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, Janet. So I went and stayed with him at the Airbnb. And it was magical. It was amazing. It was like a love fest. It was like,
Yes.
this is a person that I like manifested, like with my comedy, with my personality. Like I was so impressed at my ability to like have someone not just be like, oh, she's cool, I'm gonna follow her on Instagram.
Yeah.
But I was like, no, I have to come to you. I need to
Mhm.
be with you.
Yes.
So I was like, wow, this is great. And the whole weekend I was just like, oh my God, I'm in love with this guy. Like this is
Yeah.
crazy. On the way out, oh, he met my parents. Yeah, he just met
Wow.
them. Like he wanted to. He was like, I want to meet them. Part of me thinks that was probably because of the book, because he was reading about them. And so I think that he was also like, these are really interesting people. So he wanted to meet them. But to me, I'm going, all right, this guy likes me a lot. Like, oh boy. I do not just bring people to my parents. That is not something that I do.
Yeah.
So he met my parents. He bought my mom flowers. Again, his idea. He's like, I want to buy your mom flowers. Can we stop by? Like, great, great, great. You are telling me in so many ways that you love me.
Mhm.
Is the shoe about to drop? Yes, it is. Yes, the shoe is about to drop. Sadly, it is.
Okay.
He went back to Washington. And I give it a couple days. I'm like, this was amazing. I'm just gonna let him like settle back into work, and then we'll have a phone call. And I want to like debrief. Like that was amazing. That was the best weekend ever. That was
Yeah.
so great. Like, when can we do that again? When can I come to you? What can I do? I was just like all about like next steps. And he's like, well, I don't actually want to be in a relationship.
Wow.
Yeah. I was like,
Damn.
you could have
Damn.
fooled me. You
Wow.
did fool me. Joke's on me. I thought that is exactly what you wanted.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I was like, well, that's news. And so I was like, damn, like that one really stung. That one really, really hurt. And my mom and my parents were involved. They were like, what
Yeah.
happened? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I thought everything was going swimmingly, but apparently he didn't want to do a relationship. And
Oh.
that got missed, along the way.
Yeah.
So that one
That's
hurt
weird.
really bad.
That does hurt. I'm sorry that happened to you. Wow.
Oh, and
Jeez.
he's in a relationship now, and that was like 6 months ago. So
Jeez, man.
great.
You know what? Maybe he got
Must
to
be
the
with
end of the
you.
book and he was like, eh.
The book's actually not that great. I don't
He's
even
like,
know why I went out there to see her.
Stop highlighting it. He was like, yeah, I think we're done here. I don't know. He was like,
That's cold.
yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
don't know
cold.
how crazy people think. I don't know. Like,
You're right. I think it was a little ludicrous. And I did tell
yeah,
him, I was like, the flowers was over the top.
a
Like,
little over the top. Yeah.
you don't
No.
buy my mom flowers unless you're
No,
fucking
no.
proposing to
Nobody
me.
buys
That's
mama flowers unless you can see it.
nobody buys mama flowers.
Nobody, and
That's
nobody
right.
puts baby in the corner either. That's
Right,
not gonna happen.
right.
No, you don't do that.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah,
Wow.
so that was that. I don't know if there's jokes around that quite yet because it's still like very recent for me, but
Yeah.
of course I've written about it. Of course.
Of course.
So yeah,
Wow.
that was one that really stung quite a bit because I was like, I thought that this was this, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think, yeah, sometimes people just like don't want to communicate that they don't like. For me, I'm like, maybe he was just like, oh, I wonder if I could get that, you
Yeah.
know, like I don't know when you see someone on stage and they're like performing. It's, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm so far from a celebrity, it's not even
Sure.
funny. But like I was on stage and I had a
Yeah.
microphone and maybe he was like, whoa, could I get that?
Could I
Would
do
she, you know?
that?
And it's like,
Yeah.
you got it, you did it. Like
Yeah. You worked pretty hard too,
now
which is
what?
strange. I'm like,
Yeah, I'm like, really? All that money and all that flying and
worked
all
pretty
that?
hard for
Wow.
that.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Well,
Okay.
people are weird, and it
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. It does.
I got to tell you, Mimi, this has been really enjoyable, and I've talked to a lot of comedians. Listen, they're all really nice and stuff. I often find that they're very different doing this than when they're on stage,
Oh, really?
and honestly, maybe not as interesting. Honestly, seriously, not as interesting. I listened to your comedy and talking to you, very similar, very similar. Very interesting on stage and very interesting in
Oh,
real
I
life.
almost misunderstood. I thought you were
I
dissing
mean,
me. I
can you
was
get
like,
with the program, please? Like, how
I was
about you?
like, I am not interested. Got it.
Okay, can you follow, please? Like, you
My
can blame me.
comedy is similar to my
Your
me
comedy
talking
is
to me,
similar to
and that is
you.
refreshing.
Okay, let
Got
me
it. Thank
simplify
you.
this. Okay, here, all right. You're funny on stage, and you seem like a funny, delightful person in person as
Thank you.
well. We're putting these together. Okay, like,
I have a brain injury. Leave me alone.
I don't often find that to be the case, is what I'm saying completely. I'm like,
I actually really agree with you. Yeah,
yeah,
people can be mad different. Yeah.
yeah. And I actually don't like that. I actually, because it's weird. It's like, I understand it's almost like you're doing this thing, it's a show, but also like, I mean, you're funny. Can you kind of be funny in person a little bit, like a
Right.
little bit? Like sometimes it's like zero. I'm like, wait a minute, what is going on here? you
I
know?
see that with actors now that I live in LA. Like I see that
Yeah.
with actors. They're like very serious
So
people. I'm like,
strange.
what?
It's a turn off, honestly. It's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, anytime you're
Oh
playing
no.
someone else, it's kind of weird. I mean, you're literally playing someone. That's your job, is to not be yourself. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
kind of weird. I don't know. You know.
Yeah.
So, anyways, what a pleasure speaking with you. Tell all the wonderful folks how they could listen to your comedy, watch your comedy. The whole spiel.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. So my website that I barely maintain is called
Okay.
mimihays.com. You can find me on all of the social medias at Mimi Hayes Brain. You can find my TED Talk. If you type in laughter is not the best medicine, it will pop right up. Do not read the comments. There are many trolls, or you
Don't
can
read it.
fight the trolls. Maybe you could
Yeah.
fight the trolls for me.
Maybe you'll
That'd be
fight the
fine. You can find my podcast, Mimi and the Brain, on all of the things. My book. How did I forget about that? I wrote a book. It's called I'll Be Okay. It's just a hole in my head. It is still circulating on Amazon, but I prefer it if you bought it through me, since I have the rest of the inventory of the nice books, and I
There you
could
go.
sign you a copy, send it your way. You can order those on mimihays.com.
And if you're looking to date Mimi,
Hey!
your story may get told on my podcast. It may happen, just so you know. So be nice to her.
So be nice. Come on.
Come on. She's a very nice person. Relax, people.
Thank you so much. This
Mimi
was so much fun.
Hayes. Yes, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. We'll be in touch.
Thank you.